Good afternoon, Ryan. How you doing today, sir?
Good, man. Happy Friday.
It is Friday in the middle or the end of summer break Friday, right? School's back
Yeah,
in session and things are moving, right?
absolutely.
All right, so we were talking offline as usual, and the question that we keep seeing come up is the market slowing down or is it picking up? Like, I don't know what to believe, right? What are you seeing on your end?
Well, I think in talking with buyers, so I can kind of speak to buyers since it's primarily who we're working with the majority of the time. The the general consensus is that, hey, we're seeing these properties sit on the market a little bit longer. There are 30, 40, 50, sometimes even 100 days on the market. And I think the market's slowing down. So there's this resistance to kind of make any kind of move. They just want to see where it goes from here. And when we were talking offline, we were discussing some of the activity that you personally have just seen with your listings, but then also some of the other factors that maybe not everybody's paying attention to. So I think that's what we wanted to bring forward, just some awareness around it. I would say from the outside looking in, if I were not in the real estate market, I would 100% say that real estate market it's slowing down. Like, I'm not buying right now. I'm going to go ahead and wait. But knowing what we know and seeing the data, we've seen this before where we have the market slow down to a point, right? It's kind of like coming to a stop sign. You're going to slow down a little bit and then you're going to take off again, right? You're not just staying at the stop sign forever. You're just pausing for a moment and then you're going to go again. And we saw that here recently. And there's a couple reasons why, but tell us a little bit about some of the listings that you had because you had a couple that were sitting a little bit longer and they're now in escrow, right?
Yeah, so we had, I think over the last week, we ended up taking five of our listings that we had on the market already and put them in escrow. And, none of those were properties that had just come on the market. So they weren't new properties that, got offers that buyers were waiting on. They were all properties that had been on the market for a bit. And we put five of them into escrow. And the thing that we're seeing as probably the biggest trend as to why that happened, especially with them being properties that had been sitting, was the little blip in interest rates and
Yeah.
the affordability becoming better for buyers who were already in the market and maybe were able to, go at a higher price, right? Or they were just more comfortable with the payment at that price, and there was a couple of them that change in interest rate brought the average payment down on those like $230 a month. Like that was a pretty big swing. What other things were you seeing, obviously besides just interest rates that
Yeah.
factored in?
So the rates, are obviously a big factor. And when you see rates had this small window that they dipped for just a minute. And what happened is the media comes out and says rates are coming down. They're the lowest they've been in over a year and a half. We start to hear that. It makes its rounds. We see it on our social media. We hear it on the news. Whether you listen to the media or not, you hear it. And all of a sudden you're like, all right, finally, I've been waiting for this to get a little bit more affordable. Now I'm going to enter the market again. And as a result, you start to see these properties that are 40, 50, 60 days on market go into escrow. And a lot of times at ask price or really close to it. It's not like they're getting these like huge $50,000 concessions. They're right on target. It's just the buyer activity was asleep for a little while because rates, but also look where we are in the calendar year. People are doing vacations. They're stressing out a little bit because kids are going back to summer. They're trying to squeeze as much as they can in before the kids have to go back to school. And so you've got this little bit of a slowdown here. Now that things are kind of more normalized, kids are back to school. Summer's kind of coming to a close. They hear the media say, hey, rates are at an 18-month low. It reactivates them. Now, those rates were low for a blip, like literally about 3 days, and then they started to climb back up again. Now, that's just kind of a precursor to what we're about to see as we see that escalation move in the right direction, getting lower and lower and lower on rates. We're going to have these up and down. They'll be there for a minute and then they're going to be higher. Then they'll be there for a minute, then they're going to be higher. So word of for the wisdom, both for sellers and for buyers, you got to be ready, right? If you're selling your house, just be resilient, be patient. Realize it may take 40, 50, 60 days to get an offer, but it's going to be a good offer when you get it. If you're a buyer, be ready to go because when they do take that dip, you want to take advantage of that couple $100 a month savings, and you don't want to wait and then find out it's going to be quite a bit more expensive than you were looking for before.
Yeah, for sure. And then to go back to what you were saying on the properties that had been on the market going into escrow, um, they were coming in at very close to the asking price. So out of those five, I think only two of them, the offers that were accepted were below the asking price. And the one that was the most below the asking price was only $10,000, which isn't huge, for that property. So it's good. And again, it's buyers taking advantage of affordability and, sellers who were already prepared and on the market, right? And like you said, when it only lasts for a couple of days at a time, like both processes, buying and selling and getting into a position, they take longer than those blips to be ready, right? Like going through the pre-approval process correctly and being able to go make an offer on a house that you can take action on right now. Or if you're a seller, getting your house ready and on the market and available to show. Both of those processes take more than the 2, 3, 4, 5 days that we see these little blips in interest rates, or even like earlier in the year, the Dream for All down payment assistance program, right? Like just a lot of things are these little limited time windows, and if people aren't ready, they're just going to miss out on the opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about like the prep time that you need, because I think, you have that little bit of a blip, it reactivates you, you get excited about it again, you decide you're going to re-enter the market, or maybe you're actually going to pursue getting pre-approved or listing your house. On the buyer pre-approval, this is kind of what it looks like. Application comes in. We have a pretty good idea where you stand if you're, a W-2 wage earner, you're not self-employed, don't have ultra complicated taxes or financials. Now we can figure that stuff out in a matter of hours in most cases. Now, are you fully ready to go? Probably not. We probably need to have more discussion around, some due diligence around your payment budgets and all that stuff. But you could essentially start to write offers almost right away if your paperwork's ready. You write the offer, that negotiation on that offer. Sometimes it's very fast, sometimes it takes a day or so, and then you can lock in. So you could hear rates are down and then go to contract within a day or so. That's possible. It's on the quicker side, but it's definitely possible. What about on the selling side? Because that's an area that I think takes a little bit longer, but that just could be my perspective. I would imagine that the prep time to sell your house, list your house, might be just a little bit longer than a couple of days.
Yeah, it is for sure. Unless like so the fastest acting situation, right, would be if you have a seller who is already decided that they are moving no matter what. So like a job transfer, whatever, like they don't have a choice, right? And they've done it before, right? So they've already started getting the house ready to go, right? Meaning that they've decluttered and stuff like that and just gotten it ready to be seen and photographed. So if that's the scenario that I'm walking into, and really all we're talking about is price, and then what can we change aesthetically, to have more curb appeal or to be more visually appealing to a buyer, like that's a short conversation, right there, like an hour. And then we got to get the photographer out, and that could be a few days depending on how busy he is, and then get the pictures back. So let's call that 72 hours from the initial time of meeting, right? And then we can be online that day. So on the fastest side, I would say it's 3 days. It's the fastest that I would recommend, because I would never say like, hey, we saw this blip in interest rates, here's our opportunity, let's throw your house on the market without any pictures, because I think that's going to do you more harm than good, especially
For sure.
if the house is beautiful.
Yeah, 3 days is way quicker than I thought. I mean, honestly, that's a pretty quick timeline. I would imagine that, that's not every time. That's just kind of a rush case. But knowing that you could, if you're in a situation where there's some urgency behind it, you could get your house on the market, fairly quickly, knowing that maybe given some of the indicators that we see, it may sit for 30, 40, 50 days with not a whole lot of activity. You may want to get it on there a little quicker. But these are good conversations to have. I think if you're considering a move, maybe there's a job transfer, this is when you want to reach out. You want to talk through it. You want to find out what the steps are, because it isn't, let me make a decision and it's on the market. I'm going to make a decision at 3 o'clock. It's on the market at 5. It's going to take a little bit of time to do it the right way, put yourself in the best position possible so that you get the best offer and your home is represented properly. Same thing as a buyer. It's, 3 o'clock, like, oh, I want to go see that house tomorrow at 8 in the morning. Yeah, you could do it, but we probably want to spend a little bit of time like going through budgets, make sure we have, let's discuss the market, the strategy, how you can win as a buyer in this market. What approach do we want to take? That's going to take a little bit of time. So, the more prep time, we've said it time and time again, the more prep time that you have, the better. It's kind of like making a meal. Like, you got guests coming over, you might want to prep everything and have it all ready to go so that you can throw it in the oven. You don't necessarily like when they show up, and just toss it. You got some prep time, right? Most people wait till last minute, and then what happens is they're ill prepared, right? The meal doesn't turn out as good. So prepare yourself, have a conversation. It really doesn't hurt. Doesn't cost you a darn thing to talk about listing your house. Doesn't cost us, or cost us, but it doesn't cost you as a buyer anything for us to have a conversation around, where you stand. We don't charge you for the credit reports. We don't charge you for the soft inquiry on the credit, and we don't charge you for the consultation time either. So it's a good place to start. Real low pressure. Get some info and be ready to go.
For sure. All right. Anything else we want to talk about that could be impacting whether or not the market is picking up or slowing down?
The only thing I'll tell you, we were talking about rates for a quick second, is that on our side, there's a lot of things we have access to that they're telling us, where the markets, meaning like the secondary market, thinks things are going to go. So as an example, there's not to get super complicated with it, but when mortgage rates are done and they're packaged and they're sent out and they're sold as an investment in Wall Street, there's bidding pricing, right? And so if Wall Street feels like those bonds that they're tied to are going to stay, they're going to be there for quite a while. So these are rates that are not going to refinance or anything like that. They're going to give a pretty good bid on it because a lot of money is made in real estate on the servicing of that loan. Every time you make a payment, there's a little chunk of that's going to go to the loan servicer to manage that for you. And there's a gigantic business there. But they're not paying a premium right now. Why? Because they don't think there's any value in those loans. They're going to get those loans in, and in 4 to 6 months, they're going to refinance back out of them. At some point, they will start to give you better pricing, and the premium will start to improve as we get lower. We saw that back when rates were in the 2 and 3% range. Great premiums on those loans in the secondary market because they're like, I really think these are going to stick around for a very long time, and we'll make a good spread on these. The funny thing is, like, a 2 or 3% mortgage to a loan servicer really pays the same. In fact, it probably pays more than like a 7 or an 8% mortgage to a loan servicer because that loan's going to turn over. So they get the same. It's a small margin, a small spread, and their play is to carry that for as long as possible. So they want to carry it for what used to be a 3 to 5 year window now is projected on those lower loans is like 7 to 10 years. They're thinking that that's the lifespan of that loan. But they're looking at like under 2 years for the current loans that are being written. So what does that tell us? There's really smart people on Wall Street that are betting gigantic money. We're talking billions of dollars that interest rates are going to get better. So if interest rates are better, and we saw that small blip activate a certain amount of buyers and move 5 properties that you had on the market that were significantly over 30 days, what's going to happen to the rest of buyers when it stays in that place for 20, 30, 40 days at a time with lower rates? We're going to be back in that place where we have multiple offers, bidding wars, prices come up a little bit. So we've said it time and time again, there's a small window of time right now to kind of win as a buyer. I think you really should take advantage of where things are at because not everybody is getting those offers. If it doesn't show well, they have a terrible listing agent, we're going to exploit that. We're going to work with you as the buyers, and say, look, that's one I think you can go after, you can get a good deal on. And they're out there. We're seeing some really, really good deals come across our desk right now. And so if you're even considering buying, this is a good time to kind of like play around with that a little bit. You may not get every offer accepted, but there's some really good opportunities and a great place for deals right now. That window's short. When the rates start to come down and they get to where you want to be at, those deals are going to shrink. You're not going to get the concessions that you're really looking for from the seller.
For sure. Just to back up what you said, out of those, like I said, only 2 of the 5 offers that were accepted were under the asking price. One of the properties had been on like 50 days and had minimal traffic, no other real offers in that 50 days. But all of a sudden over the weekend, we had 3 offers in on it. And, but again, thanks to that blip of interest rates and affordability for buyers. So you're absolutely right. When it's not a blip, when it's an extended period of time.
Yeah.
And so the buyers that were able to take advantage in this blip were the ones who were already in the game and already ready, right?
They're ready to
Dude,
go.
30, 45 days, like we just said with timing, like you can get off the couch and be fully ready in that time, right? You know what I mean? If you had zero intention of buying before those rates came down, you can go, couch to 5K basically in that time frame for sure. So we'll have a surge of new buyers entering the market, and it won't be what we just saw over the past week and a half, where it was buyers who were already in the market just taking advantage of a dip. And then back to what you were saying with the 3 days to get a house on the market. Like I said, that's probably the fastest example. I would say the average time from when I meet with somebody for the first time to discuss everything to when it goes on the market is probably like 3 to 4 weeks. And that's because they hadn't gotten the home ready, they hadn't started packing, that, just all of the stuff to get the house ready to be photographed and presented and shown. Most people haven't done that yet. And so, like I said, it usually takes 3 to 4 weeks on average from when I meet with somebody the first time. So,
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I think, prepare ahead, right? Plan ahead, but the first step is conversation. Just literally have the conversation. And then from there, if it's regarding loans or it's regarding listing a house or buying a house, like we can direct them as to what their next steps would be and then give them an appropriate timeline. And if we need to fast track that, there's ways to do it, but we can give them, a more realistic time approach that might not be as stressful. Because if you fast track it, look, it's a little bit stressful as a buyer or a seller, right? You're rushing literally everything. So it can be a little bit stressful if you don't plan ahead.
for sure. All right. Anything else that we want to talk about with regarding the market picking up or slowing down?
No, I think that's it for now. I think it gives people a little bit of a perspective as to what we're seeing kind of in real time, right? Not these lagging reports. When rates took that small window, that small dip, it took the media a few days to respond. Well, when they responded, those rates were sort of gone. So the same thing happens sometimes when we see, the market maybe holding onto a property a little longer. They're like, oh, yeah, it's, market's slowing down. A lot of times the media is talking about national too, right? And there's still some really hot markets. So I was talking to some folks that are in different markets in different states that they have like 15 offers on every property still right now. So they cannot keep a property on the market longer than 1 to 2 days. It's always an escrow. And there's other parts of the country that are slowing down. What'll happen is you'll hear the media talk about some parts of the country that are slowing down a lot, and then they sort of spin it so that you feel like that's just your backyard too. That's not the case. You need to kind of figure out exactly what's going on in your micro market. So in LA County, in Palmdale, in Lancaster, in West Side, in this neighborhood, right? There's micro markets that we need to pay attention to.
You're right. All righty, sir. Well, thank you again for your time. And then you guys out there, if you have any questions, thoughts, concerns, do you want to have a conversation about what it looks like to move forward? Obviously, we would love to help you.
Perfect.
So
All right. Thanks, guys.
See ya. Bye.